Welcome back. We're following a major story in our Law and Justice lead today. A Nevada grand jury has indicted 6 people who acted as pro-Trump fake electors in a scheme to overturn the 2020 election and subvert the will of the American people. Let's get straight to CNN's Kyung La, who is here. Kyung, tell us what you're learning about the indictment.
Well, this indictment was announced by the Attorney General. The state Attorney General had said at one point that he wasn't going to pursue this, but then something changed. And let's show you a little bit about what this all goes back to. It was in December 14th, 2020. 6 people in the state of Nevada had gathered to sign what was a fake elector sheet saying that they were giving the 6 electoral votes in Nevada and declaring Donald Trump the winner. The problem, this is all fake. Even though it looks like a ceremony, it's not. And this became part of the charade of the 2020 lie. And so the Attorney General in Nevada has now announced these indictments handed down by a grand jury. What has happened to these Republican leaders, many of them leaders in the state party, we found them still basically leading that party in the state of Nevada. We found at least 2 who are now crisscrossing the state talking about next year's caucuses. Take a listen. You haven't spoken it. You're not going to comment on whether you've spoken to anybody.
That's going on, right?
But so, you do understand
please, if you would turn that off, we have nothing to talk about really on that. Yeah, I have nothing to say.
Do you still believe Trump won?
Yeah, it's irrelevant. The Electoral College elects the president, and so the Electoral College elected Joe Biden, and so Joe Biden is the president.
Then how do you explain what happened in 2020? That ceremony you participated in and the document you signed?
Again, no comment on that.
The irony a little thick there. The others have also maintained some leadership in the Republican Party. And even one of the people who were announced as a defendant today, Jesse Law, he announced his candidacy for a state assembly seat. It's important to note that these are felony charges, very serious, carrying a max penalty in one of the C felonies for 5 years, a maximum of 5 years.
The ironically named Jesse Law. I guess.
So irony all over the place.
Let's bring in CNN's Kristen Holmes and Tom Dupree, who worked in the Justice Department under President George W. Bush. Tom, how serious are these charges, and are you surprised it took until the end of 2023 to bring them?
Well, the first question, they're very serious. These are felony charges. You can face incarceration for several years. As to whether I'm surprised about the duration that it took to bring these charges, yes, a little bit. In other words, this was an election that happened, about 3 years ago. And the fact that it took this long to bring what are relatively straightforward charges, they're basically false attestation, false document signing charges. It is a little curious it took 3 years. I think what that reflects is that in these intervening 3 years, there's been some developments. So we have witnesses who participated in this scheme, not necessarily the people under indictment, but other people that have been in the news in Georgia, for example, who may well have been cooperating or have started to cooperate with the Nevada Attorney General. So the Nevada Attorney General may now have access to evidence and testimony that he didn't have previously, and that's why he decided that now is the time to bring these charges.
Kenneth Chesebro, perhaps.
Perhaps.
We don't know.
Perhaps.
We don't know, but we know he's been allowed to travel to specific states where these investigations are going on. And Kristen, this election lie, it's still at the heart of the Trump campaign. You could even say it animates Mr. Trump and his campaign. And it animates so much of the messaging that the GOP pushes out there.
Well, that's true. I mean, what we have talked about time and time again, particularly on this show, is that one of Donald Trump's main messages is that, 1, 2020 was a rigged election, and 2, the democratic process of elections is rigged and illegitimate as a whole. And that is what, when you hear multiple people, including anti-Trump Republicans and Democrats, talking about what a Trump second term would look like, that is why they use the term anti-democratic, because of those processes that he fights. Now, when it comes to this case in particular, what's interesting and what we've seen in the past is this is really the time where the Trump lawyers and the Trump team start going through who these indicted people are and what their relationship could be to the former president. And I will point out that at least 2 names, 2 of the people who were indicted in Nevada, actually testified before Jack Smith and that grand jury. And that just goes to show you that there is some level of interest outside of just Nevada that potentially at some point Jack Smith had in some of these individuals regarding this fake elector scheme. And that is going to be one of the things that Trump's team themselves are looking at when they are trying to figure out who exactly are these people, what exactly do they know, who are they connected to, because as we saw in Georgia as well, That's part of this. Are they going to flip? Are they going to cooperate? And what does that look like for the former president?
So what happens next?
Well, and Michael McDonald, as we answer this question, what happens next politically as well as in the legal space? I mean, politically, Michael McDonald is, as you well know, one of Trump's closest allies in the West. So it's a question of where does this lead? We don't know. The Attorney General was scheduled to have a news conference today. That has been now delayed because of the unfortunate news out of Nevada.
Okay. Tom, there's this other major legal story today. Sources say prosecutors in the Georgia election subversion case have officially put former Vice President Mike Pence on their list of possible witnesses. If he is put on the stand, can he claim executive privilege and refuse to answer questions?
I would be shocked if he claimed executive privilege and refused to answer questions. I think that he will answer the questions. And look, this shouldn't surprise anyone. In other words, Vice President Pence was obviously central to a lot of the events that unfurled on January 6th and the run-up to that. Doesn't surprise me that he would testify. From the prosecutor's perspective, he would be one of the most credible witnesses of all. Former president's vice president who was at the scene of so many of these contested events.
All right. Thanks to everybody. Appreciate it.